The grand lobby of the prestigious Stellar Heights Hotel glistened in the afternoon sunlight, its marble floors reflecting the soft glow from the crystal chandeliers above. The air was filled with the subtle hum of conversations, the rhythmic tapping of designer luggage wheels, and the polite exchanges of impeccably dressed staff attending to their high-end clientele. Every corner of the lobby screamed luxury, from the gilded mirrors lining the walls to the fragrance of fresh orchids carefully arranged at the reception desk. Amid the bustle, a black guest entered through the revolving glass doors, their presence marked by quiet confidence. Dressed in a well-fitted shirt and jeans, their attire was simple yet clean, the kind that spoke more of practicality than wealth. They carried a modest suitcase, worn from years of use but neatly kept. Their eyes scanned the room briefly before moving toward the gleaming reception desk. Their demeanor was poised, their walk steady, embodying a quiet dignity. Behind the counter, a white receptionist named Abigail, clad in the hotel's tailored uniform, glanced up. Her polished smile faltered for the briefest moment as her eyes swept over the guest. Years of working at Stellar Heights had conditioned her to identify guests she deemed suitable for the hotel, a list that, in her mind, revolved around appearances of affluence. The black guest before her did not align with her assumptions. Her judgment was subtle, yet immediate. She straightened her posture, her professional smile returning, but it lacked its usual warmth. "Good afternoon," she said, her tone crisp but perfunctory. She spoke with the careful politeness reserved for moments when her assumptions overshadowed her courtesy. The guest nodded politely, placing their booking confirmation on the desk. "I have a reservation under the name Marcus Hale." Abigail's smile grew tighter as she tapped away at her computer. "I see," she murmured, though her tone suggested skepticism. "And you're sure it's for this hotel?" Marcus kept their composure, offering a small, patient smile. "Yes, I'm certain." Abigail's fingers paused above the keyboard. She glanced at the luggage, functional but far from the designer brands she was used to, and then at Marcus. Her gaze lingered a moment too long, betraying her doubt. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice dripping with condescension, "but our system doesn't seem to have a booking under that name." Marcus's brows furrowed slightly. "I booked online a week ago and received confirmation. Would you mind checking again?" Abigail sighed, her irritation thinly veiled. She pretended to search the system once more, though her fingers barely moved across the keyboard. "Unfortunately," she said, leaning forward slightly, "we don't typically accept walk-ins, and our suites are reserved for an exclusive clientele." Other staff members nearby exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the growing tension. Some guests glanced over, curiosity flickering in their eyes, as they noticed the receptionist's dismissive demeanor. A few frowned, clearly uncomfortable, but no one stepped forward to intervene. Marcus remained calm, refusing to let the subtle humiliation chip away at their composure. "Perhaps there's been a mistake. If you'd like, I can show you the confirmation email." Abigail's professional mask slipped momentarily, her annoyance shining through. "I'll call the manager," she said curtly, picking up the phone with a theatrical air. "But I can assure you, our policy is quite strict." As she placed the call, Marcus stood silently, their patience unwavering. The air around the desk grew tense, an unspoken awareness of the receptionist's bias settling over the space. Abigail, confident in her assumptions, cast a smirk toward a fellow staff member as if to say, "This will be sorted soon." Little did she know this moment would not unfold as she anticipated. The judgment she so confidently wielded would soon unravel exposing not only her own prejudice, but the systemic flaws in the exclusive world she so staunchly defended. Marcus Hale, the black guest standing at the reception desk of Stellar Heights Hotel, was far from ordinary. Unknown to the staff who now subtly judged him, Marcus was not only a wealthy individual, but one of the most influential figures in the hospitality industry. As the owner of the Stellar Heights hotel chain, Marcus had built his empire from the ground up, guided by a vision of creating welcoming and inclusive spaces for travelers worldwide. His journey to success had been paved with grit and determination, overcoming countless hurdles that had taught him the value of humility. Despite his wealth and status, Marcus had never embraced the ostentatious lifestyle often associated with his success. His attire was simple, his demeanor unassuming, and his presence lacked the airs of privilege. This approach wasn't just personal preference, it was strategic. Marcus believed in experiencing his hotels as a regular guest, often booking under an alias and avoiding any indication of his true identity. These covert visits allowed him to assess how his staff treated patrons, ensuring his values of fairness, respect, and hospitality were upheld. Today's visit was no exception. Marcus had chosen Stellar Heights for an undercover assessment, eager to gauge whether the staff embodied the inclusive ethos he had worked so hard to instill in his brand. What he encountered instead was a subtle but cutting reminder of the prejudices that lingered in even the most polished settings. Behind the counter stood Abigail, the receptionist. Polished and poised, she was the picture of professionalism on the surface, but her behavior told another story. Abigail prided herself on her ability to read guests, a skill she believed set her apart in the competitive hospitality industry. In reality, her judgments were steeped in biases, shaped by appearances, and preconceived notions of wealth and worthiness. Abigail had a history of treating guests differently, based on their attire, demeanor, and perceived social standing. Wealthy-looking patrons were met with warm smiles and expedited service, while those who didn't fit her image of affluence were often subjected to delays, dismissiveness, or outright condescension. To Abigail, Marcus appeared to be just another traveler trying to stretch beyond their means. A far cry from the elite clientele she believed the hotel was designed to serve. Unaware of Marcus's true identity, Abigail's condescending demeanor reflected a sense of superiority she felt entitled to wield. Her disdain for those she deemed unworthy wasn't personal. It was habitual, an attitude reinforced by an environment that rarely held her accountable for such behavior. She thrived in the exclusivity of Stellar Heights, assuming her judgments were not only accurate but justified. For Marcus, this interaction wasn't new. As a black man navigating a world where wealth didn't always shield him from prejudice, he had encountered similar biases throughout his life. But this was different. This was his domain, his creation, a space he had envisioned as a haven for all guests. And yet, standing before Abigail, he realized the very values he had built his empire on were being undermined by those he entrusted to uphold them. What Abigail saw as just another moment of gatekeeping would soon become a turning point, not just for her career, but for the culture of Stellar Heights as a whole. Marcus wasn't just a guest. He was the force behind the walls she stood within, and her actions would spark a reckoning she could never have anticipated. The luxurious lobby of Stellar Heights Hotel exuded an air of exclusivity, with its marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers and the hum of polite conversations filling the space. Marcus Hale approached the reception desk. carrying himself with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to navigating high-stakes situations. Yet his modest attire, a casual blazer, simple loafers, and an understated watch, betrayed none of the wealth or influence he commanded. Abigail, the receptionist, glanced up from her desk, her practiced smile faltering slightly as she took in Marcus's appearance. "Good afternoon," he greeted her, his tone polite but warm. "I have a reservation under Marcus H." Abigail's lips curved into a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let me check," she replied, her fingers tapping at the keyboard with mechanical precision. Her demeanor shifted subtly but unmistakably. The warmth she exuded with previous guests evaporated. After a few moments of feigned searching, she looked up and said, "I'm sorry, but I don't see a reservation under that name. Are you sure you booked at this location?" Marcus nodded patiently. "Yes, I made the reservation online last week." It should be under Marcus H. Abigail's smile grew tighter. "Well, I can't seem to find it. Perhaps you made a mistake." Her tone was laced with condescension, and her eyes flicked over him, as though she was appraising whether he belonged in the upscale surroundings. Maintaining his composure, Marcus calmly replied, "I can show you the confirmation email." Before he could retrieve his phone, Abigail interrupted, her voice slightly louder now, drawing the attention of nearby guests. "Unfortunately, we're fully booked today, so even if you did have a reservation, we wouldn't be able to accommodate you." The tension in the room thickened. A few guests nearby exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from discomfort to curiosity. One couple subtly pulled out their phone, recording the interaction from a discreet angle. Marcus's calm demeanor didn't falter. "I see. Fully booked, you say?" His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it now, a quiet authority that made Abigail falter for a moment. "Yes," she replied hastily, recovering her composure. "And if I may, sir, we do have other locations in the area that might be more suitable." Her gaze swept over him again, her implication unmistakable. Marcus stood silent for a moment, his dark eyes locking onto hers. Abigail shifted uncomfortably under his steady gaze, but she didn't back down. "I'll look into that," he said finally, his voice smooth but clipped. "Thank you for your time." As Marcus turned to leave, Abigail's lips curved into a faint smirk, satisfied that she had handled the situation as she saw fit. Meanwhile, the tension in the room lingered. A few guests who had witnessed the exchange looked on, some visibly appalled by Abigail's behavior, while others avoided meeting Marcus's gaze as he walked past. Once outside, Marcus paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. The sting of Abigail's treatment was undeniable, but he wasn't surprised. Instances like this were far too common, even for someone of his status. But this wasn't just any hotel. This was Stellar Heights, a brand he had built to represent inclusivity and exceptional service. Maintaining his poise, Marcus resolved not to let the moment slide. He had observed enough to understand the deeper problem at play. This wasn't just about one receptionist's prejudice. It was about a culture that allowed such biases to thrive unchecked. And as the owner of Stellar Heights, he had the power to change that, starting with Abigail. Inside, Abigail returned to her routine, oblivious to the storm her actions had set in motion. The guests who had witnessed the interaction whispered amongst themselves, and the faint sound of a recording being shared quietly spread through the lobby. The fallout was only beginning, and Abigail had no idea how drastically her world was about to shift. The revelation came swiftly and decisively, spreading through the hotel staff like wildfire. Later that evening, Abigail was called into a meeting with her manager, a rare occurrence that immediately set her on edge. Seated in the small conference room, she noticed the tension in her manager's demeanor, a contrast to his usual casual attitude. "Abigail," he began, his tone uncharacteristically formal, "we need to discuss an incident that occurred earlier today." Before she could respond, the door opened, and Marcus walked in, calm and composed, but commanding an undeniable presence. Abigail's heart sank as she recognized him, her thoughts racing to the earlier exchange. "Allow me to introduce Mr. Hale," the manager said, gesturing toward Marcus. "He's not just a guest. He's the owner of Stellar Heights Hotels." Abigail's face turned pale as the weight of the revelation hit her. The man she had dismissed and humiliated earlier wasn't just another guest. He was the person whose values and vision defined the very brand she represented. Her usual confidence evaporated, replaced by a growing sense of dread. Marcus took a seat across from her, his demeanor measured but firm. "I'm here not just as the owner of this hotel, but as someone who experienced firsthand the kind of treatment that no guest should ever endure," he began, his voice calm but resolute. Stellar Heights was built on principles of inclusivity, respect, and exceptional service, principles that were disregarded during our interaction today. The room was silent except for the ticking of a clock on the wall. Abigail opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Marcus continued, recounting the incident with clarity and precision, ensuring every detail was laid bare. "Your actions today reflected poorly on the values of this establishment," he said, his tone unwavering. "This hotel is not just about luxury. It's about creating an environment where every guest feels valued, regardless of their appearance or background." Outside the room, murmurs from other staff members echoed in the hall. News of Marcus's identity and the earlier incident had already spread, leaving many shocked. For some, it was a wake-up call. For others, a moment of vindication for grievances they'd witnessed but never addressed. The power dynamics in the room had shifted entirely. Abigail, who had wielded her authority so callously earlier in the day, now found herself on the receiving end of an unflinching accountability. Effective immediately, Marcus concluded, "I'm taking steps to ensure that incidents like this never happen again. That starts with holding individuals accountable." Abigail's dismissal was swift and unceremonious, a stark reminder of the consequences of her actions. Marcus's authority was unquestionable, and his decision was met with understanding nods from the staff who had gathered to hear the resolution. As the meeting ended, Marcus addressed the staff directly, emphasizing the importance of respect and professionalism. "This incident isn't just about one person," he said. "It's a reminder to all of us that the way we treat others reflects not only on ourselves, but on the values we claim to uphold." The staff left the room with a renewed sense of purpose, while Abigail quietly gathered her belongings, her mind reeling from the rapid turn of events. Marcus's presence had transformed the atmosphere, setting a clear standard for the future of Stellar Heights. The fallout from the incident was swift and decisive. Following the meeting, the hotel management under Marcus Hale's leadership took immediate action. Abigail, the receptionist whose behavior had sparked the issue, was terminated. The decision was not taken lightly, but it was necessary to send a clear message about the hotel's zero-tolerance policy toward discrimination and poor service. In a statement released to the staff and the public, the hotel's management expressed deep regret for the incident. "We extend our sincerest apologies to Mr. Hale and all our valued guests," the statement read. "This incident does not reflect the values of Stellar Heights hotels. Moving forward, we are committed to ensuring that every guest feels welcomed and respected, regardless of their appearance or background. Marcus wasted no time in turning the incident into an opportunity for growth. As a seasoned leader and someone deeply invested in the values of the brand, he announced a comprehensive plan to transform the hotel's culture from the ground up. First, he introduced mandatory training programs for all staff members, focusing on diversity, equity, and customer service excellence. These sessions included real-life scenarios, role-playing exercises, and education on unconscious bias to help staff recognize and eliminate prejudices in their interactions. Inclusivity is not an option. It's a standard, Marcus stated during the program's launch. The training extended beyond front desk staff, encompassing every level of the organization. Managers and executives were required to participate, ensuring that the leadership team embodied the same values they expected from their employees. To reinforce the changes, Marcus implemented a rewards program to recognize and celebrate staff members who went above and beyond in demonstrating inclusivity and outstanding service. Employees who consistently exemplified the hotel's values received bonuses, promotions, and public acknowledgement during team meetings. Additionally, a new feedback system was introduced, allowing guests to share their experiences anonymously. This initiative encouraged transparency and accountability, giving management direct insight into areas needing improvement. Word of the hotel's transformation spread quickly. Guests who had once felt hesitant to stay at Stellar Heights returned, reassured by the proactive measures and the leadership's genuine commitment to change. The hotel's reputation began to shift, not only as a luxurious establishment but also as a pioneer in inclusivity and respect within the hospitality industry. Staff morale also improved. Employees who had previously felt disheartened by the toxic culture under certain team members now found themselves part of a supportive and welcoming environment. They were proud to represent a brand that valued every individual equally. For Marcus, the resolution was not just about rectifying a single incident, but creating a sustainable legacy of fairness and respect. "This is just the beginning," he told his team. "We have the opportunity to set an example, not just for this hotel, but for the entire industry. Let's make it count." The hotel, now a beacon of inclusivity, stood as a testament to the power of leadership and accountability in driving meaningful change. The transformation of Stellar Heights Hotel was nothing short of remarkable. Under Marcus Hale's leadership, the hotel had become a symbol of inclusivity and respect in the hospitality industry. The once tense and judgmental atmosphere had been replaced by warmth and professionalism, a reflection of the cultural shift that Marcus had spearheaded. As Marcus walked through the lobby one afternoon, the difference was palpable. The staff, now trained to embody the values of respect and inclusivity, greeted every guest with genuine smiles and thoughtful service. The lobby buzzed with activity, a harmonious blend of travelers from diverse backgrounds. The energy was no longer defined by exclusivity, but by a welcoming environment that celebrated everyone. Marcus paused by the front desk, where a new receptionist, hired for their enthusiasm and commitment to customer service, was assisting a young family with care and attentiveness. Nearby, a bellhop held the door open for an elderly couple, their gratitude evident in their smiles. It was a stark contrast to the cold indifference that had once marred the hotel's reputation. He continued his walk, observing the diverse staff working together seamlessly. Their professionalism and respect for one another mirrored the changes that had been woven into the fabric of the hotel's operations. For Marcus, this moment was more than just a stroll. It was a reflection of his vision brought to life. At the concierge desk, a new guest inquired about local attractions, greeted warmly by a staff member who went above and beyond to provide recommendations tailored to their interests. The guest's appreciation was clear, and Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. As he passed through the lobby, he noticed another significant detail: a framed statement of the hotel's new mission prominently displayed on the wall. It read, "At Stellar Heights, we believe every guest deserves dignity, respect, and exceptional service. True hospitality is inclusive, welcoming, and reflective of the diverse world we live in." The changes weren't just surface level. They had become part of the hotel's DNA. Marcus knew that the work wasn't done. There would always be more to learn, more to improve. But this was a meaningful start. Stellar Heights had become an example for the entire industry, proving that luxury and dignity could and should go hand in hand. Marcus stopped by the entrance, watching as a family arrived. They were greeted warmly by a concierge who offered assistance with their luggage. The family looked around, visibly pleased with the welcoming atmosphere. Marcus smiled, his heart full, as he reflected on the journey that had brought the hotel to this moment. As he stepped back into his office, he glanced at a simple but profound quote etched onto the wall. "True hospitality isn't about luxury. It's about dignity for every guest." It was a reminder of the principle that had guided the transformation and would continue to shape Stellar Heights for years to come.